Hello and welcome to my first YouTube video. Today I'm going to show you how to do a simple brick stitch. These earrings are an example of what the brick stitch looks like, and it looks pretty nice, I have to say. Well, I use Toho seed beads with those specific earrings. They're glass small seed beads, size 11 I think. And these are also an example of seed beads you can use. I'll explain more about these at the end of the video. Those are delicas, and what you can use for each different kind of seed beads, and what kind to get. These are another example of a brick stitch, although I did use a peyote stitch pattern, but I cheated a little and used brick stitch for them, and it worked perfectly. These are actually only brick stitch. And there's another example of a peyote pattern, but I used brick stitch and turned out pretty nice. So to begin with, I use Beadaholic beading thread, and I use white. There's also different colors, but I would get a decent amount for this just to demonstrate how to actually do the basic brick stitch, and a decent amount, so like maybe 12 inches. Don't know how much that is in centimeters, but you can get the idea. And I really like this thread. It's nice and versatile. And for these beading projects, I use beading needles, and they're much thinner and much more bendy than other metal sewing needles, for example, and I like them a lot. I definitely recommend using them. So, just a quick note, this is actually my first time showing anyone how to do any kind of craft thing, and I love crafts so much, but I hope you guys can understand what I am doing. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment, because this is my very first video I've ever done, and I am not experienced at this. Thank you. So to get back with the beading, you want to string 2 beads on your string to start. And just fair warning, you want to also have a little tail at the end. You don't want to string your beads all the way to the end, because that tail is very important for when you're done with the piece, so you can weave it back in and make it a little bit more structured and less likely to fall apart. And there's the tail. You want to make sure you have that. It doesn't have to be too long. I made mine a couple inches, I think, maybe 1 or 2 inches. Now, we want to weave back into the beads to make the first, this is called a ladder stitch, so you don't do it in the first bead, you go into the second bead, which I did not just do. Yes, I did. Okay, sorry, I thought I did that wrong. Yes, you only want to weave back into the bead closest to your needle. Don't weave into both of them. Don't weave into the farthest one, the one closest to your needle. And then it'll hopefully, after a little bit finagling with the string, it'll turn into a ladder stitch. Well, that's what that is called, I guess. And I may have had a knot. No. Okay, good. Didn't have a knot. Yeah, you just have to learn to know how to basically read the string. It's a little difficult, but you adjust things and figure it out. It works. It'll all work out, I promise. It may be frustrating, but that's how it should look right there. There it is. That's the first ladder stitch you want. And now what you do is you only string 1 bead onto your thread. And I'm going to do that in a sec. There it goes. You want to put your needle back on the bottom of the bead into the side where the tail is coming out. I think I may have forgotten a step here. Whatever. Yeah, the tail is supposed to be coming out the other side. No. Yes, and you want to weave back into the bead, as you can see. So the needle stays on the top, like that. and pull it tight. And the first row normally doesn't look the nicest. Sometimes it's a little screwy looking, but once you get going, it will straighten out, I promise. So I'm not really sure what happened, but I guess I switched beads. So what you want to do after you add each bead, you get to 3. You basically just want to keep doing that same process as I've been showing you. Just add a bead each time until your desired length. And there's a lot of patterns that show you how many beads you need and stuff. So basically all you have to do is follow that for the bottom row of a brick stitch pattern. And I think I may have encountered a knot. No, not it. And as you can see, it's a little uneven looking, but that's completely normal, I promise. And I think I did, yeah, I only did 4 beads in this row just to show you how to exactly do the brick stitch. I didn't want to make it more complicated than it needed to. Eventually I will be showing tutorials on how to do earrings and things I showed at the beginning of the video. Yeah, so excuse me, I'm a little sick. So you can see I got to 4. And now the next step you want to do is add 2 beads onto your thread. This is the true beginning of your brick stitch. Now you'll see that there's little loops in between each bead. You want to put your needle underneath one of those loops, the first loop closest to the string, and thread it through, and make sure not to have the beads go through, because this first stitch is a little difficult because it can get a little loose and then nothing will happen once you thread it in. Again, you have to kind of mess with it to make sure it all fits in. Yeah, so as you can see, this is what it should look like. The string should be underneath the little thread bridge, I guess you could say. And you want to thread the needle back up into that bead where the thread is coming out. And make sure the thread comes around the actual bridge. You don't want to go back under the bridge or it will come undone again. Yeah, I had to finagle a little again. This is a tricky process to learn, but I promise you can do it. If people can build rockets and computers, I promise you can build beads. Make bead earrings and stuff like that. And so you should have it stacked on top of each other like that. I again had to finagle it again. Sorry about that. It would look like that. So the next step here is similar to the bottom row, is you're going to pick up another bead. Just 1 bead this time. And then you will again weave it underneath the thread bridge you have there. And excuse me. And then weaving through the thread bridge as I slowly do. Sorry, I was slow crafter. But you weave it through the thread bridge, and it'll look like that again. And then you weave it back through the bead. So you want to continue this process until you have basically used up all of the thread bridges that you have created with the bottom row. And after we finish this step, I will show you how to minimize or reduce a row and to add on to a row. And here I demonstrate how to get a knot, which is not what you want to do when beading. And there it is, the little evil thing. I'm pretty good at getting out knots and it's kind of, as I said before, a technique you have to develop. But as I demonstrate here, you do not want to use the beading needle to undo the knot because it is flexible and is not meant to undo knots in the first place. So I ended up using a normal sewing needle to undo this knot, which is a much better option to getting rid of knots than using that beading needle, as I demonstrated before. And here I just continue with the adding one bead at a time process, inserting into the bridge, the string bridge thing, and eventually you'll get 2 rows, as you can see there. And this is basic brick stitch. And then now I'm going to show you how to reduce a row in brick stitch. You start by, again, taking 2 beads and putting them onto the string, but instead of going under the first string bridge, you go under the second one, and that's all you need to do to reduce that row. And once you have done that, you can continue normally doing brick stitch, so 1 bead for each bridge, as you would normally do. Now I'm going to show you how to increase a row on brick stitch. And as before, you add 2 beads onto the thread, and like a normal brick stitch row, you start in the first thread bridge and continue normally all the way to the end. So here you can see now we have reached the normal amount of beads for the brick stitch, but now we want to add 1 more bead to the end, and now we add that bead by inserting the needle into the same thread bridge as the last bead you just put on, and then thread back up into that bead, creating an extra end as well as increasing the row. Now we have our finished project, as you could say. This is a great way to practice to do increasing and decreasing on the brick stitch. And once you get the hang of this, you can make other projects as I showed you before. Now, also to finish off a project, you want to weave back through the beads instead of knotting them off. This will create a perfect, I guess you could say, seal, but it prevents the beads from coming apart, and it is very effective, I promise. So here we have the normal sewing needle, and on the right I have my beading needle. There's a very big difference. Do not use the sewing needle. I made that mistake. I used it a lot before I got my beading needles, and I broke a whole bunch of my seed beads, and it made me so frustrated. So don't use those. Please don't use those. As you can see, the seed beads will slide through, but you have to go through the beads more than once in this kind of bead weaving, and that is not an effective needle, I promise. Now here's some basic beads. These are check beads. They're very small and round, and they're really good for making 3-dimensional objects, as this basic lizard I did. And they're nice for making things look rounder and smoother, I guess, especially these 3-dimensional. They can be used for flat brick stitch or peyote stitch, but I really prefer these delicas. Delicas they're much more cylindrical and can lie next to each other a lot more flush than the check or, say, Toho beads I used before. And they all come in a lot of colors. Price-wise, I'm not really sure because these were actually given to me as a gift for Christmas. But as I said before, they're very good for making flat projects like these earrings. Thank you so much for watching this video. I know it's my first video, it may not be the best, but hopefully you'll be interested enough to subscribe and possibly like it. Stay tuned for more interesting craft videos, and I may even post some other videos too. Thanks again. Bye!